Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. Here, we look closely at the intersections of the postpartum window, the Ayurvedic perspective on health and healing, and the universal mother principles that are the keys to giving and receiving effective care. Hello, I'm Christine Devlin Eck. I'll be taking you through interviews with professionals who are making a profound difference in the lives of their clients, conversations with individuals brave enough to share their stories of vulnerability as a way to lift up others, and my own journey through birth, parenting, caregiving, and building a conscious business. We are here to honor the sacred windows, the profound transitions in life that give it all meaning. Welcome to the conversation.
And I will never be the same again.
Okay, welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. I'm so pleased to welcome my guest, Sarah McGinnis Chapman, to our conversation space today. Sarah and I connected recently, and I just love how I'm just drawn naturally together with people that I'm supposed to have incredible conversations with. And I feel like that, Sarah. It was just such a beautiful opportunity to meet you and learn about your work with integrative health and postpartum care. Sarah's based in North Carolina. She is a mother of three, a military spouse. She's a veteran. She's devoted to helping people reclaim their well-being through conscious self-care. And really, like, this is really based on your own journey into parenthood. We will be discussing like how deeply impactful the physical, the emotional, this is really like a holistic approach. And you are guiding women to rebuild their habits, to reconnect with their inner strength. I'm really in love with the support that you're offering, and I'm excited to talk about how this work has stemmed out of your own personal experience, how your experience as a veteran and a military spouse has impacted your work and the communities you serve. And just thank you, Sarah, for being here with me.
Thank you, Christine, for that warm welcome. I really appreciate, the time and space that we can devote for this conversation.
There's just so many, like really every single person has their own story and how that shapes the postpartum window. And we know that postpartum is like, yes, there are overlaps for most people and in the ways that this is a massive transition, but the way that each of us experiences it's so unique. And really, I think when we can hold openness for knowing that my own experience is going to be different from this person's, and yet also knowing that we have one another and we have the ability to find support, there's something there. And I'm just curious to begin this conversation by getting a glimpse into your own experience and how this has led you to prioritize postpartum care in your career.
Yeah. Well, I guess it starts with, it was my physical health and my mental health. With my first child, I was active duty at the time. And I think most people, um, there's a lot of uncertainty and potential and just that space and energy of pregnancy. Like you don't know what's going to happen on the other side. And so when I emerged on the other side, a lot of the expectations were, it was just so different than what I thought it would be like. um, to get into it, I was in a really remote location in Minot, North Dakota. um, I came from a pretty, I don't know, a pretty diverse setting in Metro Atlanta. That's where I mostly grew up. My mother's Japanese and my father's Caucasian, so there's a lot of like um, cultural importance in my physical health. Maybe not exactly mental health, but I knew that there was a certain way to eat, especially during postpartum. I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes during pregnancy. So that was one of those unexpected things that I thought, oh, I was so healthy. And it was almost like, I hate saying this, like I felt like it was an attack on my identity as a healthy person. Because I was active duty, I was really fit, I was eating well. And it wasn't until I got onto the other side of postpartum that I realized that it was beyond my physical health. It was my mental and emotional, and even I didn't realize this until now, but spiritual. There is a spiritual sense of coming on to the other side of becoming a mother, like the birth of a child is the birth of a mother, and that postpartum period was just really eye-opening, and it was difficult because I had to balance the devotion to the military and my husband and my child in this new location. I actually PCS, so that means a permanent change station from North Dakota to Montana about 3 months after I gave birth. And all that change was hard for me to get stability. And so that's kind of the roots of why I started in the postpartum period, because it kind of led me to like, oh, what is possible for my health that I still haven't discovered yet.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And another thing that I remember we had talked about when we first connected was the fact that, you kind of grew up with the understanding that there are certain ways that people are taking care of postpartum because in the culture that, your mother comes from, this is what generationally is done. You show up, you eat these foods, you get taken care of. And so here you are in Minot, South Dakota, and there's like nothing. There's nothing, like nobody's doing that. So talk a little bit about like that realization of, oh, oh, this isn't going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man. I was a bit salty about it. I was
That's
just like,
fair. That's really fair.
because before I was stationed in Minot, we had training in Southern California, and it was such a diverse and amazing experience, to have all sorts of holistic opportunities as well as, well, I guess we'll just end it there at holistic in many different ways. And the food culture is very diverse. And so going to Minot and then realizing that, oh, that broth that I wanted to make, well, I don't have the ingredients. I have to figure it out. And oh, I can't just ask some Asian granny to make it for me because that service is not in the local area. So I had to take the initiative, and it really kind of catapulted from there. I was really inspired. I mean, I love food, I love cookbooks. And so I think the around that time with my first child, the first 40 days, that book and cookbook, it just showed up on like an ad. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. It's like the bridge between Eastern traditions and making it palatable to people on the Western Hemisphere interested in learning more about this. And for me, I was like, oh, these are the recipes that like are it's like a fusion. And some of them are even pretty authentic. And I'm like, I can do this. And so that was the start of it. And yeah, I hope I answered that question.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think it's a really important layer because, for people who, have living ancestors who are steeped in close enough to those traditions where this is still a part of what we understand happens when someone is in the postpartum window. Um, and to not have access to that when you already knew about it, you were so close. I mean, there's so many people who just don't have any idea that that's a thing because we're
Mhm.
so far removed from the ways that we were cared for, our ancestors were cared for postpartum. But I just find that really striking, that you knew and you expected, and it wasn't something that you had access to. And yeah, and I'm really sorry that that was the case because I can imagine that that left you feeling a bit at a loss. And while I love the First 40 Days cookbook, that is such a beautiful book, and I think it's really impacted and opened many people's eyes to how nutrition and food and care is essential. It's a book, and it's not people showing up for you. It's not a community showing up for you. And I think many of us do piece together the care in different ways that, may or may not be enough. Oftentimes it's not. But thank you for sharing, a bit about the origin of your entry into motherhood. And um, I wonder if you'd talk a little bit about, you mentioned earlier, balancing your devotion to the military, to your husband, to your child. Talk a little bit about the military aspect of it.
Yeah. So at that time, honestly, Christine, it feels like a past life for me because I've grown so much since then. Um, I was a nuclear missiles operator. So that entails going down into the missile silos for at least 24 to 32 hours with one other person. We call it alert, we pull it alert. Um, and our job was to be proficient in turning the keys to launch nuclear missiles. There was a lot of, um, I don't know how to say this, there's intensity in the perfection of the job, which of course makes sense. Um, and there was that demand for perfection, I think really started to take a toll on me. And it started to creep over into my personal life. And it wasn't until I separated from the military that I realized that, wow, this mindset needs to change. And I was unhappy. And I felt like I was digging my own hole. And this is where that spiritual connection comes into play. Not essentially religious, but just the connection, realizing that I needed to connect with other people in a heartfelt way. And I felt like I hadn't opened my eyes enough or grown enough as a person. And that changed when I became a mother. A lot of things like that change, right? And I realized that, oh, the military, I didn't have to devote myself to it 100%, even when I was so unhappy. Um, and I knew a lot of it was just connection, maybe even shifting my mindset. My body was really out of whack because it was really uncertain shift schedules. So for almost 3, 4 years straight, I never had a consistent sleep schedule. And that really did impact me later. And then my devotion to my husband, he's also military in logistics. And, you know, I wanted to spend my time with him when I was available and he was available, which really led to us being really isolated. And, women need connection with other women. And I didn't, grow that connection. So that it's just like all these different parts that my supposed devotion led to a loss to different aspects of health in my life. And becoming a mother opened my eyes to that because, I wanted to be better and I'm trying to piece together different things. Um, so when it came to the military, there are boundaries that have to be drawn. And there are many successful mom military members. But for me, I was really dissatisfied about having to go back to work so quickly and having to be on shift schedule. And I felt like I missed a lot of time and development with my first child. And I was pregnant pretty quickly with my second. My two eldest are only 16 months apart. And being in a male dominated workplace, there's a little bit of uncertainty about um, how people would take that because I just got off of maternity leave, came back, got pregnant again, will be on maternity leave again. I'm sure a lot of other working moms could, that'll resonate with them of just being proud about who they are, not letting other people's opinions affect them. But that kind of goes back into just that space I was in. Yeah.
It's it's so striking to me, the listening to you talk about how, the devotion to these other pieces was really at the expense of connection with yourself and the needs that you truly had. And through the experience of becoming a parent, it's like everything kind of recalibrated. Seems like everything kind of shifted and you were able to see the imbalances in a way that you weren't able to see before because you were just moving forward. And I think, I mean, I understand that. I feel that in my own experience too, in certain ways. Um, you talked about mindset, and I know this is a huge part of your work with new
Mhm.
moms. And, I think, there is something to military and sort of the discipline and the focus that's required for that type of environment and mindset. I think there is a connection there. And there's also, almost this disconnection with mindset that I think humanity can have, where we just ignore and we suffer because we are not connecting with the mindset that aligns us to our true path, to where we'll find joy, where we'll find peace of mind, where we'll find our true selves. So this idea of like the mindset required for like the discipline of military and the mindset that is required for really accessing our source, that's like such a huge difference. And I wonder if you've thought about that or like recognized how there's this connection and also this disconnection there. Kind of fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And I will probably say it's like moving from one pendulum to the other, it's like one extreme to the other. Because what really came out of it was the mindset was so important because it just led to how do I fill my cup and still keep moving and grow my capacity and my threshold for stress, joy, being present in life. And a lot of that was just grit in the military. It was grit. It was not it was not resilience. Resilience is knowing how to fill your cup back up, know your boundaries, know when to stop, know when to push yourself, to challenge yourself, but at the end of the day, you're never burnt out. And for me, I think I was burnt out constantly, which led me to kind of like going into my work now that, I've had a few years to learn from my clients and learn about myself, that mindset is so important because it affects your habits, your behaviors, your emotions. Like your mindset are your thoughts, right? And your thoughts affect your emotions, and your emotions are your quality of life. So I don't know. It is really interesting. Yeah.
How are you sharing your gifts and passion for caregiving with others? In a world where education and awareness around the postpartum window is lacking or missing from our modern systems, we have a profound opportunity to shift that paradigm. You may be a few simple offerings away from making a truly impactful difference in the lives of mothers and families in your community. We are here to support your journey in the ways that work best for you. Schedule a conscious care strategy session to meet one on one with me, and let's identify the right next step for you to begin a path of conscious care for new families that fits your life and your needs. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session to schedule a time that works best for you. That's www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session. I think so many of us kind of organically fumble along until we recognize where in our mindset we are being held back or where we're being misdirected or where we're being distracted. And so, speaking personally, I feel like I've been shown ways to shift my mindset and I've sought other ways out myself, but I don't know. I feel like there has to be like a better way for people, if of course like new moms, but really everybody benefits from shifting, like having tools and strategy because yes, it is like the door opening to everything. It allows us to have the motivation to instill new routines and make big kind of scary shifts in our life and our work because we know it's better for us. It enables us to have the types of relationships that we want that really nurture us with our partners, with our friends, with our children. It helps us to really recognize that sense of self and confidence and discernment of what is the next right thing for me to do, but without the skill set to really harness our mindset, like use mindset as this beautiful opportunity, those things are really elusive. They can feel really elusive and confusing and defeating in some ways. And so when you are working, with new parents and you're focusing on mindset, how do you do that? What does it look like?
I think bottom line, the simplest thing is that I am creating space in their lives where they're able to focus solely on themselves in a completely non-judgmental, safe environment. If it's over the phone or through Zoom, if they prefer not to show their face, or if they do, they want to see the expressions between the two of us. That's the bottom line. It starts with being open and willing to stop and focus on yourself. Because it's crazy how many conversations I've had in the beginning of a program where moms just start crying. This is so consistent. And they're like, I have never shared this with someone before. I just never had the time. Or I never stopped to think about this because I didn't want to think about what would happen if I didn't do it. And I would say this is also like a form of expression. I think half the time there are a lot of thoughts. There's a big mental load for new parents. There's uncertainty, there's social pressure, expectations put on themselves, and it clouds your actions. It clouds your emotions. And you're so tired too as a new parent. Sleep plays a huge role on this. And so just the foundation. I mean, this is all coaching across the board, but for moms especially, it's just being able to exist in a safe, non-judgmental space where they can express themselves. And I will say it takes a couple of sessions sometimes. I have had those rare moms where they're very self-aware. They've had therapy work before, um, which is not in my scope of practice. I'm very complimentary. They know what they want. They just need someone to hold that space for them where they can have easy resources to go to, where they can be guided in questions and a bouncing board of like, someone that will not give them advice. And this might be a little off topic, but I want to talk about advice real quick, Christine, because this is where I think a lot of new parents get really their foundation shakes a bit when it comes to advice. Some of them don't have the boundaries or the maturity or the experience to say no. A lot of the advice comes, very, it's meant well, right? But there is a reason why sometimes advice comes off wrong. And to me, and this is from, I forget the author, and I'll have to put in the show notes, but he has a great TED talk about this. Advice is the other person's subconscious telling you that they don't believe that you can do it. So they're giving you advice to tell you how to do it in their perspective.
Mm,
So,
wow.
yes. So when it comes to advice, coaches don't do that unless they are specifically working on something strategic with the client, right? It's in their client agreement. But for me, with moms, I never give advice because I wholeheartedly believe that they are a whole person. They can do it. They just need that space for someone to believe that they can do it. And it might take them longer, you know, but I'm getting emotional thinking about it because it just it hurts my heart when I'm the only person that believes that they can do it, whatever that goal is. A lot of it has been it's simple things like meal prepping, just taking control or making action towards their physical health, um, incorporating more exercise, or just even, I need to figure out how to stop yelling at my kids. I'm like, okay, well, let's get down to the root cause of why you're yelling at your kids. you know? So Christine, I'll admit, I forgot the original question, but it was just, this is what instinctively I just had to share because for new parents, advice can be a chisel on their statue of confidence, right? And you chisel too much at it and you try to accept too much advice, and then your statue of confidence breaks and crumbles. Um, yeah, I got a bit excited there.
It's amazing and really it hit me. And it's something that I've been aware of for a long time. I remember facilitating a new mom circle for years, and we would say, like, we don't give advice here. Like, we can share our stories and our, you know, how it happened for us, but we don't give advice. And um, that felt right. And I also, in our programs when we teach postpartum care providers, it's really about empowering our clients to realize that they know their baby's best and they are the best ones to understand what needs to be done. And our job is to be there to take care of them and support them so that they feel confident. They feel like they feel like we want them to feel, which is empowered. And yet, when you said that, giving advice is, our subconscious telling them that we don't think they can do it. There's something about that that is like really packs a punch, like a really big punch. Um, so, okay, so Sarah, when you are working with a client, do you have like an intention for how you want your care to be received? Do you have like when clients, work with you and then they move on, what is your hope that they're bringing with them?
Can you clarify that question with me? Because I have like two competing responses. Like when they move on from my program, or the intent for when they come into my program, what they hope to receive.
I guess I'm drawn towards like when they actually leave. What is it that you want them to be taking with them?
Okay. So what I want all of my clients to take away with are essentially their non-negotiables, their skeleton plan of what they need to do to calm their body, rewire their mindset, and build nourishing rhythms. So essentially, they graduate from my program, they have their notes, they have their plan, they have evidence that they have transformed because we keep track of it. And so that builds self-efficacy. And they know that even if I'm not there to hold space for them, they have the building blocks and the skills to build on it. And if they ever slip, yes, I'm there to help them with maintenance or whatever, but I want them to be able to say, oh, I've done this before and I can be better. And I want this to be like a snowballing effect because essentially I I want my clients to, I mean, as a business owner, it's not the best, right? But like, I don't want them to come back to me. You know, I essentially don't want them to come back to me unless they enjoy that, that space that I make for them. They get joy out of it, and they get growth, and they have, such energy for potential. Yes, I am there for you. But if it's for like a specific, like, I I need to work on my nervous system. I'm like, okay, we'll work on it. Let's do it together. And I really curate each session to each client. I don't think I don't believe in a one program fits all. I have a skeleton plan. I gotta be responsible. I have the building block and tools that I have, for each week that we work together. There is an intent. But if we don't get to it, that's not a problem because the client brings their own challenges and their own topics beforehand. And so I'm able to work with what's important to them and not what's important to me, which is
Mm,
essentially good coaching.
I
Yeah.
love that. Because ultimately, you know, we don't just figure it out once and it's figured out forever. Like we're
Mhm.
going through life and we're going to go through periods where we feel more depleted or disconnected. We're going to go through periods that are more stressful, and challenging for us. And so what we're doing and what you're so beautifully offering to clients is how to access their own toolkit.
Mhm.
And that is something that we don't generally get taught in life, and we should. That
Yeah.
should be
Yeah.
that should be, you know, built
Yeah.
into how we teach our children, and it's not. And so in the meantime, we have people such as yourself and the amazing conscious care providers who are out there recognizing that people don't have to feel bad. They don't
Mhm.
have to feel like it's hard. They can actually feel like I love myself and I love my life and I love my family and I'm showing up for it in all of the best ways that I can.
Yeah. That's exactly it. I just want them to not have to wait on anyone. They came to me they come to me for questions and for help, but it's just like that the fisherman metaphor. I teach the teach the women how to fish metaphorically, and then they just get better at fishing. They just get better at taking care of themselves because they were given the opportunity, the space to learn about themselves, to figure themselves out. And before coaching, when have we ever been given that opportunity of one person just wanting to learn more about you? Maybe dating, I don't know. Maybe when we're dating, your significant other wants to learn everything about you, right? Well, once the honeymoon period ends, that's about it. But with coaching, like I just love coaching so much because like we call it the beginner's mindset. The curiosity that comes with every session, every client. We're starting out a blank slate. Like I do my best to be completely non-judgmental and just curious about your life, how you are. And I've had moms say, like, it's so flattering to have someone want to know about little old me. I'm like, well, you're important too, of course. And just having that, I don't know, just that space for them is just so impactful because they are offered questions and conversations and great discussion over essentially mindset blocks that affected their actions, like tell me more about what held you back. Do you view this as a challenge? Just whatever that instance may be, having someone even ask the tough questions, that in polite company you wouldn't ask because it's invasive. And some people need that. They need to have a mirror held in front of them to hold them accountable. And a lot of people shy away from that mirror and then they lose that potential to grow, to transform, to be the person that they really wanted to be, but was too afraid to go for. And that's what I offer in coaching.
Mm. Sarah, how can people work with you?
Yeah, so they can work with me online. I'll include the link below. I say below. Christine, you'll offer that link in the show notes. Um, it's just simple consultation. This is just where we learn about each other, your biggest challenges, see if we're a good fit, and we just move from there. I work one-on-one group coaching. I also do workshops and seminars for those that are interested in learning new topics that come and go. Um, yeah, I'm completely online. I'm a military spouse. I actually just found out where we're going next. So we're all just like, oh man, you're like, time to move again. So everything I do is over the phone or through Zoom.
Mm. Sarah, I'm just so grateful to know that you are out in the world doing this work. I'm so grateful that we have been able to connect and have this conversation. And it gives me a lot of hope and peace to know that people like you are out there offering this type of support to people and in turn creating a better world for families. And I know that that sounds a little like, you know, generic, but honestly, it's from the heart, like one person at a time. That's all we can do. And I think that there's a ripple effect when one parent is creating a peaceful space in their home because they're coming from a place of regulation and self-love. How does that show our children how to do that? And how does that show our partners and our friends and our families. And, there's something we talk about in the doula scope of when someone comes into a room, if there's a room full of people and there's one person who is coming from a place of love and calm and presence, the rest of the room starts to recalibrate and re-energize itself towards that person's energetic space, because that is what is most powerful. We can regulate others simply by finding a place of peace and regulation within ourselves. And you're doing that. And thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for your kind words, and thank you for having me on your podcast. It was a lot of fun talking about this. I admit I got excited talking about some of the things. So yeah, thank you, Christine.
Glad. You're welcome. Thank you, Sarah.
Shanti, Shanti.
The Center for Sacred Window Studies has been training postpartum care providers, professionals who work with new families, and individuals passionate about postpartum care since 2018. We regularly host live free events alongside our online and in-person training and certification programs. Hop on our newsletter list to get direct access to all of our events and community support gatherings. Our mission is not only in training conscious postpartum care providers, but in fostering a robust, informed, and thriving community of postpartum professionals. Once you step inside, you're family forever. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com to add your email to our newsletter list. You can support our work by subscribing to the Sacred Window podcast and sharing with someone you know who would love it. Thanks for being here and participating in the culture-wide shift that recognizes the need for and the importance of conscious postpartum care.